The anti-capitalist continually rail against trade and the wealthy barons who profit from it. Yet their spiteful petulance is born of nothing more than short-sighted historical ignorance, because trade has benefited the masses of humanity more than anything else. For 5,000 years, from the Egyptian pharaohs to the fall of Napoleon, humanity was organised by aristocratic elites lording it over the teeming and impoverished masses. But the last 200 years have seen that situation completely turned on its head. And it's all because of trade. The Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain, certainly experienced birth pains, with initial working conditions being appalling. But its benefits have outweighed its problems by some considerable margin. And not just in the obvious and meteoric rise in material conditions. The working classes gained far greater living standards, but they also won the vote, education, healthcare, far greater freedom of speech, and 1,000 other benefits we take for granted now. Unemployed people today enjoy a standard of living unimaginable to the working man of just a century ago. And for such a short historical period, that's quite remarkable progress. And all of that progress came about because of the free market. In the 19th century, international relations came to depend on trade rather than the ruling dynasties, who had been pivotal for millennia. And the aristocracy gradually lost their esteemed position to the meritocracy. It was people of talent and ambition who rose to the fore, not those of birth. The leftist radicals of today still impugn the name of the Rothschilds. But that family had clawed their way out of the Frankfurt ghetto through thrift, ambition, and sheer hard graft. The abuse heaped on them, fanned by the likes of Hitler, was based on nothing more than envy of their skill and prejudice at their race. It still holds strong today, particularly on the extremes of the political left in Britain, Western Europe, and America. Yet the idea that elites hold a monopoly on wealth and power, that they conspire to keep the masses down, and that they hoard wealth for themselves, ideas still held by vast swathes of humanity, are completely false. The reality is that such individuals generate wealth, and that benefits us all. And the market also allows for constant reinvention. This is undeniable from even the most casual appraisal of the evidence. The vast majority of the most remarkable people of the last 2 centuries were not born to wealth or privilege. They came from decidedly humble backgrounds. Isambard Kingdom Brunel, Henry Ford, George Stephenson, Thomas Tate, Conrad Hilton, John D. Rockefeller, John Paul Getty, Rupert Murdoch, and Arnold Schwarzenegger all pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. And the same is true of the super rich of today. Because here's a list of people who were all effectively broke 30 or 40 years ago. Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Sergey Brin, Steve Jobs, Tim Cook, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, Elon Musk, and Carlos Slim. All came from decidedly humble origins. And these people employ millions of workers and pay trillions in taxes, giving opportunity to the masses and reinvigorating economies. Yet radicals simply lie that Amazon generates no taxes, when billions in tax revenue are created by the online store. In 20 or 30 years, All these people will have been elbowed aside by the next generation of innovators who will push us on to new heights. One of them may be watching this video right now. The wealth and technology generated in these people has powered remarkable breakthroughs, like the development of the COVID vaccine in under a year. Yes, there have been environmental costs, but we're getting better at tackling these too. And we'll continue to make progress in this field in the future. If it wasn't for the capitalism that the radicals rail against, we would still be toiling in the fields, lorded over by an aristocratic tyranny, and our life expectancy would be 28. It's easy to complain about capitalism, though it's also apparent that those who rail against it the most also benefit from it. Strangely, they never want to give up their own luxuries or move to a socialist country like North Korea. Anyone who lives outside the capitalist world is desperately struggling to get in, because they can appreciate just how great it is. Think of the irony of Trump's wall and the Berlin Wall. Socialist states need to build barriers to keep people in, but capitalist countries need to build barriers to keep them out. And the benefits we enjoy are continuing to spread. India is now at the level of Britain in the early industrial period, with a wealthy elite and the teeming poor living in squalor. But prosperity is spreading fast, and in another century, the changes wrought there are likely to be remarkable. Over the last few decades alone, the free market has lifted millions out of poverty. It improved the provision of clean water and medical care in the developing world, and it's seen life expectancy rise and infant mortality fall. Well over 1 billion people have been lifted from serious poverty and have gained access to significantly improved levels of nutrition in the last 25 years alone. In 2013, in the span of just 12 months, 114 million people were lifted out of poverty, while since 1990, the global infant mortality rate has been halved, falling from 64.8 deaths per thousand to 30.5. In the 20th century, life expectancy in the developed world rose from 47 to 79, nearly doubling in just a century. And these benefits are continuing to spread to the developing world, bringing succour to the world's poor. The free market does not oppress the working masses. It offers the best route out of privation, repression, and despotism. We will always have doomsayers, like the current generation on Twitter. But rest assured, these people are historically and economically illiterate. They are effectively spoiled children, railing against their indulgent parents, ignorant of the myriad benefits that they enjoy. Don't believe the hype. If you've enjoyed this film, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in these topics, I've written 2 books which go into them in extensive detail. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they're available from the links below. Please feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.